Hi, my name is Rohan Patel and I have worked on this project with Akshar Gajjar. Our project is titled StockRight. StockRight is a stock market monitoring web application. It allows the users to create an account which allows them to add stocks to their watch list and view additional information about stocks. Users can also create an account which gives them access to a portfolio where they can add stocks and monitor them. So any changes in the stock prices or any relevant news which would affect the stocks would be displayed under the portfolio. So this is our the basic outline for our PowerPoint presentation. The first slide would include the group members. The second would include the product's need. Why was the product needed? The third would include the requirements. So someone who will be using this product, what will their requirements be? And the fourth one is the technologies that we used while developing this product. And fifth one, dependencies. So the Python dependencies which were required while developing the project. The sixth one would be the features of the web applications. So what features do we provide to the users? The UI features. The eighth one would be the challenges that we faced while making this product. And the ninth one would be the time schedule that we followed for completing this project. So the group members would be Akshar Gajjar and me, Rohan Patel. So investing is one of the greatest way to create wealth over time. It is a shortcut of making money if you ask me. However, for you to be a great investor, you need to have access to a lot of information which is accurate and of high quality, and all the news feeds which are going on globally. Stock market beginners face many questions. One of them would be tracking stock market direction important? I would say it is pretty important, as many of the modern investors have a wealth of information at their fingertips. Some might say that there's too much of this information, and beginners and small scale investors don't really need all this information, and this information is kind of unnecessary for them to digest, and people often gets confused when they see something that they don't understand. So that's why we have designed a simplified UI which would display only the essential information for beginners and small scale investors, so they can register and use a portfolio system to track the apps.
Hello, my name is Akshar, and I'll be talking about user requirements, technologies used, web application features, and UI features. So, this being a stock market application, we had a general idea in the beginning as to what were some of the main crucial features that we wanted to implement. One of them was showing stock quotes and being able to display company descriptions and information such as financials, income statements, which these are all things that investors use to determine whether or not to invest in a company. Additionally, we also wanted our website to be welcoming to newer investors, people who are learning this new interesting field. And so we wanted to implement a search functionality which allowed the user to search based on ticker and company name, gave you the option between either or, because many people don't really know all the ticker symbols for all the companies. And so having this feature makes it really easy for the user to find the information they're looking for, even if they don't know the ticker symbols. Next up, we wanted to display things like market summaries, which include indexes, commodities, and foreign exchange rates. These are all things that give the user a general idea as to the state of the market. Indices include S&P 500, Dow Jones, TSX. These are all just some of the main indexes that essentially give you an idea as to what the market is doing. We included commodities, which includes crude oil, gold, all these prices. They help you invest in certain companies and help you determine with whether the price is going to go up or down. And obviously, if you're planning on buying any stocks overseas in outside of Canada, you would need to know the foreign exchange rates in order to make the necessary decisions. So we decided to add all this information to our website in order for so basically the user can find it all in one place. Next up, we wanted to display real-time trending news articles from reputable sources, and obviously not just any news articles, but news articles related to the stock market and finance, business, government, whatnot. So this the main reason we wanted to do this is it gives the user the opportunity to understand the trends that are happening in the market without leaving our site, right? So the user can just come to our site, they can find all the market summary data, they can search for the stocks they want, even if they don't know the tickers. And along with that, they can also find the trending news articles in order to get the general sense of what's hot in the market right now. Now, obviously, these features that I just described are not enough to justify this being an amazing product or even a worthwhile product. So we added a portfolio management functionality to our website as well, which allows the user to essentially input how many stocks they bought at what price and which company, and all of that data is sent into a database where it's stored, and basically that data is then used to display to the user in a list form, and they can keep track of all the stocks in their portfolio and figure out exactly which ones they're making money on, which ones they're losing money on, how much money they're losing. Things like total value, total return are all determined in the back end based on buy price and current price. Furthermore, we also wanted the users to essentially come to our platform, and we wanted some way to track it and to make sure that they keep coming back. So we added a login and register functionality, and what we did is we provided the portfolio management feature behind a login wall. So users would have to register with us in order to use the portfolio manager. And additionally, after all of this, we had some features as we were planning this project. We had some things that came up on the go, things like adding definitions for technical terms, which was one of the ideas we had about midway through. This was mainly done to help newer investors, people who are new to this field. They can easily find all the necessary information through hyperlinks on our website. And we also added built-in notification systems to inform the user of changes in their portfolio, or login changes, register changes, stuff like that. So in order to implement this project, we had essentially APIs, languages, and additional tools we use. The three main APIs we used were IEX Cloud, Stock News API, and Yahoo Finance. IEX Cloud was the one that we used for all the stock quotes and all the stock data, which essentially gave us live, somewhat real-time data. I think it was around 15-minute delay on the stock prices, and the Stock News API was used for the news flash, essentially the live update of news articles that were coming out as the day progressed. And then the Yahoo Finance API was used to do the company name to ticker conversions, because IEX Cloud only works via company tickers. We had to somehow figure out a way to convert the search, the company names into tickers, so we can get the necessary data from our main API, which was IEX Cloud. In order to implement this project, we used obviously HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Along with that, we also used Django and AngularJS, jQuery, and Python. We decided to go with Django because it's a robust framework with a lot of built-in features. It takes a lot of the hassle out of the way. Things like forms. It has built-in protection for user passwords and things like that. It also has a lot of documentation online, which makes it really easy to use. And if you're stuck at any point, it's really easy to debug the code and understand what's going on because it's mainly based on Python, which is a language we were both familiar with. Additional tools we used were Visual Studio Code, which was what I used for the main project, basically just working on the project as an IDE. WebStorm was used for some of the JavaScript stuff. We used Postman to determine the JSON data that was being returned from our APIs so we can correctly understand that data and parse it in our application correctly. I personally like the Brave browser, which is what I use to do the live testing. Google Chrome browser was also used. We used GitHub to host our project, and TempMail was an application. It's a website that was used to obtain temporary email addresses to test the user register login functionality. So this is a list of all the dependencies. The main ones are being Ajax, Django. Django widget tweaks is essentially a library that allows you to customize the built-in Django forms. So as we'll see in the moving forward, the register and login pages are essentially just the built-in Django forms, but they've been customized using the widget tweak. We also used Flask, Request, Simple JSON. Simple JSON was used to convert the API responses into readable data, essentially. Request was used to request data from the APIs. So moving onwards, the features of the web application. We looked at the user requirements. Now, these are the features that we actually ended up implementing. So as mentioned, we implemented live news. We implemented getting current stock quotes, which includes price, PE ratio, volume, market capitalization, and many other good things. We also provided in-depth company financials, such as valuation, price history, dividends, the most recent balance sheet. We also have live data for the major indices and commodities, along with the foreign exchanges, as talked about before. We had stock summaries, which included the most active U.S. and Canadian stocks. We also had the most gains in U.S. and Canadian stocks, and the stocks that went down the most, which are the losers in the U.S. and Canadian stock markets. Obviously, as mentioned, we implemented the search ticker or company name search functionality, and essentially details like stock price, company description, price history, balance sheet, company name, input validation, which was one of the things that we had to deal with because obviously the API is quite sensitive and we don't want to send data in that's invalid and whatnot. So what we ended up doing is whatever data we collected from the user, we would just send it to the API, and the API respond was accordingly. Essentially, if the ticker was invalid, the API response let us know that the ticker was invalid, and so we use that information and relate it to the user through the use of notifications, and that's basically how we did the input validation. Nothing fancy. We like to keep it simple in order to make the application really fast and just no clutter. So obviously, error messages were used to display to the user that the ticker was invalid or the company name was invalid. So moving on, login and register functionality. So each time a new user registers, we send a welcome email to that user from Django, right? We use the built-in email libraries, and we used a Gmail account we set up just for this project, which essentially sends users a welcome email once they register with our service. And we had the portfolio, which had a feature to add stocks. So when you add a stock, you provide a little bit of information about that stock. You provide the ticker, you provide the price you bought it at, and the amount of shares you bought, and that information is stored in a database. And then the ticker is used to fill all the other information, which is live data. So along with the web application features, we also had some UI features. Obviously, we want to make the user experience an enjoyable experience, and having a good UI, a simple UI that's easy to use, makes it that experience just that much better. So our homepage allows you to collapse all of the main data types, essentially the market summary, the stock summary. Those are all collapsible data. They're stored in these boxes that you can easily collapse to declutter the workspace. If you look at a typical stock market website, you can see a lot of information. It's almost like a sensory overload of information, numbers and tickers and symbols and jargon everywhere. We wanted to move away from that because obviously if someone is coming in, a brand new user, they're not familiar with the stock market, they don't want to be bothered with all that unnecessary information. So we decided to keep our UI clean. We also have a search bar on the homepage, which allows the easy selection between ticker or company name. We went with a consistent color scheme, which was easy to look at. It's dark. It's dark by default, and the login and register pages also provide helpful messages in case of incorrect information. So if you're logging in and you provide it's got all of the details right there. There's no guesswork involved. It'll tell you exactly the parameters you need for the password. It'll tell you which fields are optional, which fields are required. It's all just built in there, so you don't have to do any guesswork. That's it.
So in this slide, I would like to talk about the challenges that we encountered while completing this project. We started implementing a dynamic search bar which searches stocks based on the ticker or the company type, which was a bit difficult. We ended up using JavaScript to hide show input fields, and sometimes it is the small UI elements that make the biggest impact. So adjusting the UI, which is attractive and easy to build, which loads faster, was a difficult task. Making sure the web application is responsive and works with variety of browsers and devices was a difficult task as well. But using Bootstrap really helped making the website responsive. We also did add a couple of media queries which made the website responsive. The difficult part would be connecting the APIs and ensuring the responses that we get from the APIs in the JSON format are parsed appropriately, and we use Postman for this problem. Postman helped us to visually see the data that we were getting back from the APIs, and we were easily able to parse the data once we were able to see in which format it was coming back to us. A lot of the data that we wished to display was considered premium data by most of the APIs, and they charge quite a bit. So we had to resort to using widgets from IEX Cloud to get around this issue, as our attempts at web scraping were unsuccessful. So this is the basic time schedule that we followed. Part of the January was just spent in idea generation, deciding which project we had to do. The February we started working on the project. So like initial homepage design, just implementing a rough search function, a registration function, a login feature so you can log in, log out. Towards the end of the February, we started working with the news feature, so you can check trending news, which is going around globally from trusted sources. We tried to get them from the API and display them on the web page. We modified the homepage design, so it was time everything was working and we would modify the design. So we changed the UI added CSS, JavaScripts, and different features so it would look attractive. The first 15 days of March we spent doing the modification of the UI for all the pages. During that time we also added the feature of adding and removing stocks from the portfolio for the user. We started our documentation in the last 1 month, so developing test cases, developing this PowerPoint presentation, making the time schedule, and the last 15 days we just organized the page, the layout, making sure everything looks good, and the touch-ups for the final submission. So integrating everything, testing everything, making sure there's no broken links. In the March ending we finished our project. That would be all for the PowerPoint presentation. If there are any problems, you can contact us on that email ID.